It's time to start doing some maintenance on my 2015 Versa Note. At this moment it has just over 40,000 miles and I've never done any type of maintenance to it, so it has all of the factory fluids and all that good stuff. Today I'm going to go ahead and start with the antifreeze, and I'm not changing it because of the mileage. Of course it has low miles, but it's the age of the car. At this point it's around 7 years old now. There are two different ways to lift and support your car properly so it's safe. The first one is we're going to go ahead and use a floor jack, lift it up from the center subframe right here to a very strong place, and then always use jack stands. Never rely on a floor jack, it's not safe. This is a pinch point right here. Never put your fingers between a car and a jack stand, because if the car were to fall it could cut your fingers off. Instead, grab the jack stand from the bottom and lift up like this to raise it up. Of course you want to put a jack stand on the left and the right side of the car, and you could go ahead and do this method. If you do it right, it's very safe. Don't forget to chalk off your rear wheels so the car doesn't want to roll. And the second method, which is the way I prefer because it's faster, safer, and easier, is just buy a set of ramps, drive the car onto the ramps, and you kind of set it and forget it. It's that easy. Now that we got the hood open, we could go ahead and remove the radiator cap, and this is essentially just going to break the seal and allows the antifreeze to flow out a little bit faster. Now this is another warning right here. Do not open your radiator cap if your engine is hot. Don't touch it. Let it cool off for a few hours. My car has been sitting overnight and everything is very cold to the touch, so no problems at all. So if we go underneath the car now, on the left side of the engine bay or the driver's side, we're going to see the drain valve for the radiator. There's going to be a small tube coming off, and in my case that tube is facing upward, and I later on find out that I could actually rotate it. You want to use that to your advantage. I grabbed the rubber hose and we're going to slide it right over that tube, and it kind of lets you redirect where the fluid is going to go so it doesn't make a giant mess. I hope that makes sense. Now just so I'm clear, you are not going to be able to get all of the antifreeze out. In fact, that's nowhere near the case for this video. I'm making this video for the average DIYer. This is meant to be a very easy and straightforward video. Just like doing a oil change, you never get all of the oil out of your engine. Same thing applies here. We're essentially draining the radiator and the upper and lower radiator hose, and that's all we're doing. Any antifreeze that's left inside the engine, we're not really going to get to that. The most you could do if you wanted to get most of your antifreeze out, like I said, you can't get all of it, but what you would do is buy a second gallon of antifreeze, and in a day or two after you've been driving the car, repeat this whole process over again, and that's the only way you're going to get most of the fluid out of the system. Once the fluid comes to a slow drip, go ahead and remove your rubber tube and close the valve. Be sure to not use any tools on this. As you can see, everything is made out of plastic and it's super easy to damage the radiator. If you do that, it's going to get expensive really fast. Just turn the valve till it stops and leave it at that. It's good enough. Once that's done, just clean up any mess that you made down here. The radiator cap is often overlooked, so make sure you inspect yours. As you can see, this one, the two pieces of rubber on it look like they're in perfect condition, so if you see any cracks on yours or any type of deterioration, go ahead and replace it. So I'm going to go ahead and use my no spill funnel. It's like the absolute best thing to use for any type of radiator or cooling system job. It's not necessary, but it really helps the process move a little bit faster and just make things a lot neater, if you will. It's actually called the no spill funnel for a reason. You may have noticed that the fluid that drained out of the radiator was blue in color. That's what it came with from factory. Do not go mixing colors, okay? I've seen people put the green or the orange antifreeze in a Nissan like this that already has the blue coolant. Do not mix colors. It is not a good idea. At this point, I'm just pouring in the new antifreeze, and it should take about 3/4 of the gallon before the radiator stops accepting anymore. After this, I'm going to go ahead and turn the engine on, because sometimes once the engine starts spinning, it allows it to take in a little bit more antifreeze. Now we can get inside of the car while it's running. I'm going to go ahead and turn my temperature gauge on the hottest setting and put the blower motor on setting number 2. That seems to be fine. And what we want is hot air blowing out of the front vents right here, and we want to keep an eye on the temperature gauge of the engine. You can see this one is kind of cold right now, so we want it to get close to its normal operating temperature. So the bars should be somewhere in the middle. And I'm just gonna go ahead and cycle through this just to show you guys that I do have just over 40,000 miles on this car. You could even go ahead and raise the RPM to speed up this process. It helps to get some of the air out of the system. The car has been running for a few minutes, and as you can see, we're up to operating temperature. If I grab a thermometer and put it right here in the center vents, you can see how fast the temperature is jumping up, and at this point it's really close to around 160 degree Fahrenheit. So that seems plenty hot to me. So at this point we're going to go ahead and turn off the engine, and realistically, if you're in a rush or for whatever reason, you could go ahead and put your radiator cap on and you're pretty much done. But I like to let this sit for a little while, at least an hour, because we're going to see that the level is going to drop down. That means that the cooling system is going to suck in a little bit more antifreeze. If you don't have time to wait an extra hour, what I like to do is simply just the next morning open up the radiator cap, and you're going to see that it could actually take a little bit more antifreeze, and all you have to do is top it off at that point. Now we can move our attention over to the coolant overflow tank. Now I did try to remove it off the car so I could clean it, you know, go the extra mile. But yeah, it's a no-go because you have to remove a few other parts off of the car just to get to it, and I just didn't think it was worth it. So instead I just grabbed essentially my giant vacuum pump, put the tube inside way at the bottom. There was only a little bit of coolant in here, and I sucked out whatever I could, and surprisingly the bottom of the tank looked really clean. So at that point, you know, it's as simple as grabbing our no spill funnel that has the plug in it and it still has some of that brand new coolant sitting in it, and simply just dump it into the overflow tank. Now there is a measurement on the side of the tank. It's going to say max, and I'll get you guys a shot of that right now so you know exactly where to fill it up. You don't want to fill it all the way up to the top, just go up to the max line and that's good enough. So essentially we're done with changing the antifreeze on the Versa, and like I mentioned before, if you want to go ahead and try to get more of the antifreeze out because there's plenty of it left inside the engine that's a lot more difficult to get to, you could go ahead and repeat this process one more time or two more times depending on how much time and money you want to invest in this. Me personally, I think if you were to change out the fluid that's in the radiator like we just did today, if you did this maybe at least once a year, I think you'll be in good shape. You shouldn't have any issues with the antifreeze. I know it's, you know, it's laughable coming from a guy who just said that this is the first time he's changing the fluid in 7 years, right? But I promise I'm going to try to stay on top of it a little bit better, especially as the car gets older. You have to baby it a little bit more. You know, it's so easy that when people buy a brand new car, it's just easy to forget about the maintenance type of thing and just keep driving it because you keep telling yourself it's a new car, it's not going to break down. You get what I'm saying? But guys, we have more fluids to change. So if you have a Versa and you're enjoying this video, guess what? There's going to be another one. The next one we're going to be tackling is the brake fluid. As you can see, this tool is measuring the moisture content in the brake fluid, and I tested it 3 times and we keep getting a consistent 1.5% moisture content. So I mean, it's not great, but it's not horrible. Look at me, I sound like the guy from the Chernobyl show. So anyway, the other indication that the fluid is bad is the color. Like brand new brake fluid has like almost like a clear water type of look. This fluid looks like a brownish. It's hard to describe. But the next step would be like a straight up black fluid, and I've seen fluid like that on cars and it's not good, guys. We don't want it to get to that point, so we're gonna go ahead and tackle that job next. So that's it for this one, guys. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could hit that like button and drop a comment. It really helps to support the channel. So with that being said, like always, thanks for watching.